the rule of seven is it takes 7 appointments, 7 meetings before you have a sale. And back in the day at Southbridge, we used to track that. On average, it was 7 points of contact before you made a sale.
Welcome to yet another edition of Northpoint podcast. I'm here with Mr. Mark Hall, my good partner, friend, colleague, and in many ways a terrific mentor. I wish I'd met him 30 years ago, but better later than never.
Same.
So Mark, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing terrific. And I'm so glad you're willing to share a little bit, because when I say you've been a great mentor, when we first met and you saw me doing things in that very nice way that you have, you kind of pulled me aside and said, do you expect a different result? And I knew what you meant. You just can't, if you're doing the wrong thing over and over, you're not going to get a positive outcome. And if you do, it was pure luck or, God's grace. So I learned a lot from you. One of the things that really stood out, two things, but there's many things, but two that really stood out. One was your rule of seven.
Right.
Where you told me that my approach to trying to develop a relationship and get some consulting advisory work was so wrong you didn't know where to begin. And you explained the rule of seven. So I'm going to stop here and talk to it a little bit about it.
Well, thanks, Walter, and you're gracious. I can tell you the relationship, the information flow is a lot more this way than that way. But
I don't know about that.
Yeah, from a practical, standpoint, a lot of what we do is simply building relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about lately is being relational rather than transactional.
Right.
And a lot of things, you can't hurry, and if you try to, then it really sort of reveals the intent, and that is just to sort of get on with the transaction.
Exactly.
And so I think just in a broad sense and through a lot of years of selling real estate, selling dirt, whatever it is, that at the end of the day, to have a long-term relationship with somebody and to have a business history with somebody, you just spend time with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if it came out of one of those, old school sort of books or thoughts like a Dale Carnegie, but it's, the rule of seven is it takes 7 appointments, 7 meetings before you have a sale. And back in the day at Southbridge, we used to track that. And on average, it was 7 points of contact before you made a sale.
So, and for those of you who are not familiar with this, Mark developed Southbridge in Savannah. I happened to live there. I moved there before I met Mark, but it's a terrific development. Really love living there. And he started off with how many acres? 1,000, 3,000, something like that?
Well, yeah, the big tract was 6,000, but that piece of it was about 1,000.
Right, and it was where 95 and 16 intersect. And I presume 20 some years ago, people thought you had been,
we had lost our mind. Yeah.
And
nice guys, but not very smart.
And what a success, exactly. So this is why I say I learn a lot from you. But so when you try to get a new sale, it took a lot of meetings. It wasn't, and you didn't force it on day 1 or day 2 or whatever.
Well, and especially on a new idea, a concept, or new direction, or whatever it is. But over time there are, you sort of see these tendencies or rhythms of life, cycles, whatever they are, and I think. Part of it is when you set a certain rhythm, then things kind of happen naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we had people that bought a home the first time they walked in the door.
Yeah.
but they needed one, right?
Right. Exactly. Come to that.
We got to get our kids into school. We're moving. We've got a 30-day window. We need to buy a home today. You've got a pre-retiree that says we've got a couple of years to make a decision. We're just starting the process. And so everything in between. But I think at the end of the day, it's pretty simple, Walter, right? If people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. I know this sounds trite, but in a lot of ways, it really is about building a relationship, listening to people, right? How much information they want to give you until they really trust you. When you talk about, a real estate buy, if it's a home buy, typically that's the biggest transaction, it's the biggest purchase they'll make in their lives. And so they have to trust the broker. They have to trust the organization that they're dealing with. And again, depending on the personality type, that just takes time. That's a part of the rule of 7.
Exactly. And the way you had put it to me was, you want somebody to pay you $200,000 to do this work? Why? And it's no different than a real estate transaction. I mean, you can't tell people what the project is worth and then buying into it immediately. Right. It takes a while for them to see that for sure. They really need that kind of advice, the kind of team that I can assemble. And and like you said, it's anything where you're going to end up with the transaction has to start off relational.
And with, for example, the work that you do, the more time that people spend with you, the more they understand the depth of your knowledge. Yeah. And so actually from a sales standpoint, what you just said, it allows you to actually give them the sense of the value that you do create, and gives you the opportunity, if you're confident in your ability and you actually have the ability, to sort of charge retail plus 20%.
Yeah, exactly. Or more. So there's so much that you said that I'm going to follow up on, but I do want to pick on something else. So we were going to go to Jacksonville to a company's headquarters. They had a lot of money to invest in some infrastructure. We'll protect confidences. And you said, okay, I'm going to come with you. You know these guys, and how does this work? And I spoke for a little bit, and you were very polite about it, and you just said, I don't think I should go, because that's not an agenda, and I don't see where the hell that's going to get us. And so you stopped me, and you said, when you go visit somebody in their setting, that's not how you walk in. I mean, I was walking in, and I was going to talk, and you're like, That's not the best way to do it. So let's say you and I are going to go to this investment fund in Boca Raton. They invest in short line rail, and they would like to have me as an advisor, but they also want to be able to develop the real estate around some of the main rail yards. And so I don't have that expertise, but you do. And so you said, okay, I'll come with you. So we're going to walk into these guys. How would you approach it?
Yeah, and I think, you're a doctor, I'm not, but as a doctor, you need to understand how the patient's doing, right? How they're feeling. And there's really only one way to get there, and it's to let them talk, right? I mean, part of the problem, not to get off track here, but part of the problem is that doctors nowadays, they got a script written for you before you walk in the door. Yeah, here's your history. You're probably going to need some more of this. Take that, come back in a couple of months, let's see how you're doing.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't die.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. And so I think it's just really trying to be organic, trying to let people really describe what they want to do. And then sometimes it's uncovering a piece that they didn't even realize themselves that they were looking for, right? That's the essence of sort of discovery and listening. And if you do it well, then people appreciate it, and then you're able to really give them a solution that they weren't expecting, might be a little bit more challenging, but really allows you to sort of set your relationship apart from a lot of others.
So where this helped a lot is I always got angry clients who we listed the scope of work. I'd figure out how much time and materials that was. Here's the budget, a little markup in case we're off by a bit. Here's the price. We work halfway through it, and they're learning. They see the 50% report, and they go, "Oh my goodness, I'd never thought of this, never thought of that. We're going to have to add this to it and that to it." And holy crap, this is and the other stuff, yeah. Well, then instead of 100K, this has got to be a 150K project. And they're like, "No, you already agreed to this," and just ill will.
You're caught.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're stuck.
And you said if you had sat there in the first place and shut your mouth, ask questions, let them think out loud with you, talk to you. I mean, these are my way of saying what you explain, but how important that is. And it's a great way to avoid scope creep or scope of work expansion without people being willing to pay. Because what they wanted was an answer to their problem, not some written report.
And I think there's a lot of it. I mean, some people would just say I'm slow, in general. So that I think that the real challenge is to get the other party to take the time to really think through and give you the information, because there's so much pressure, as we said on the last podcast. I mean, the big companies are living by the quarter, right?
Yeah.
I got to have results. I got to have a turnaround. I got to have a quick decision. But one of the things, again, that we've talked about is the shift to a longer term perspective, right? And a relationship more than short term sound bites, newspaper headlines, whatever it is, quarterly earnings reports. Sort of the superficial rather than the structural.
Yeah. So we're going to do more of this, but I want to close on a really important point. And you said to me that you're one of the most honest analysts I know. You'll even turn down work that shouldn't be done, even if they want to pay for it.
Right.
And you said you're very sincere, but you're not coming off that way. And I'm like, what? What? How dare you? But the point is you need to build that relationship. And when people that you're building a relationship see that, you really are sincere, they can't tell that in one meeting or in two meetings. It takes that build up, that time to get there. And not to give away what goes on with the Kemmsies group consulting business, but it is a big factor behind how things suddenly went from praying for work to actually managing, an improving pipeline.
Right.
That mattered so much. Now, we are going to do a couple more of these kinds of tapes. I know normally it's Walter talking his head off, but I do think, Mark, that
that's probably the only good idea I've got. We're probably out of podcast.
No. There's plenty of stuff that I remembered. I was trying to figure out if I could get a few more minutes in, but that's not right. Let's save this for our next taping. I want to interview you some more. And the rest of you, next time you hear him leading, get a pencil out and write some of this stuff down. I did. It was good. Thanks for your time.
Walter, thanks.
All right, man.